Duty Alaska Airlines pilot accused of trying to cut off a plane's engines mid-flight told police that he took magic mushrooms 48 hours before the incident.
According to court records, Joseph Emerson told investigators he believed he was dreaming and thought pulling the handles of a fire extinguishing system would cause him to wake up. Emerson pled not guilty to 83 counts of attempted murder. The frightening in-air situation is putting a new focus on mental health in high-stress jobs.
WKYT's Mariah Conjito talked with an expert who says it can be hard for people to disclose their mental health issues when their job could be on the line.
According to reports, pilot Joseph Emerson said he'd been struggling with depression for 6 years. He told authorities prior to the flight he took magic mushrooms and that he hadn't slept in 40 hours and thought he was having a nervous breakdown.
If you've been dealing with depression, your world has narrowed. You consider very few options anymore about how to get out of this. You feel like you're the lowest of the low. You just want the pain to stop. Your thought isn't about what about the passengers. Your thought is, I want to end the pain that I'm in.
According to the FAA, pilots are required to undergo medical exams every 6 months to 5 years, depending on their age and type of flying they do. The exam includes questions about mental health.
The best thing for mental health is people who are going to come in willingly and are going to be willing to be honest. And until you address the cultural issues, I don't know if that screeners are going to be the answer.
Dr. Dan Florell is a licensed psychologist and professor at EKU. He says sometimes people feel inclined to lie on screenings.
So there's some real fear there if you get diagnosed with one of these disorders, that it's going to shorten your career.
The FAA says they're trying to reduce the stigma of mental health in many ways. One is by recognizing that with proper treatment for certain mental health conditions, pilots don't need to be disqualified from flying.
That's not to say that mental health disorders cannot, certainly impede your ability to function. But we also have a lot of treatment, both through medication and therapy, that can allow you to be full functioning and perform very well in your job.
Dr. Florell says anytime people start to feel cornered, they rule out a lot of options. He reminds people there are options out there. Mariah Conjito, WKYT.